All right, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at the third of this video series that we're putting together here for learning about linear perspective. Today we're going to need a ruler or some other straight edge. We're going to need some pencils, eraser. I also have a blending stump here, as well as some masking tape, similar to the lesson that we did with 2-point perspective. I've already taken the time and put together the worksheet or the drawing surface in order to prepare. So this time, because what we're doing is taking a look at whether or not we are looking up or down on a particular subject, I'm going to be using the paper in a more vertical or portrait orientation in order to help us more clearly see this idea of looking up and looking down. So in the last video, we put two wings on either side. We put the vanishing point 1 on the left and vanishing point 2 on the right. With 3-point perspective, we need to be adding a third vanishing point. And you'll see that I've added a wing up on the top here and labeled this one here vanishing point 3. I've also made a little note to remind myself that when the vanishing point is above the horizon line, that's going to help give us the impression that we are looking up to the subject. If, for example, we had the paper oriented the other way around, where vanishing point 3 is below the horizon line, this would give us sort of that impression of a flyby, perhaps a superhero flying over top of a city and looking down at the streets below. All right, so you can choose which orientation you would like to be using. I'm going to be focusing this particular video with the vanishing point above. So it's like I'm a bystander looking down, looking up at a building, and perhaps that superhero that I was mentioning before. All right, I'm looking up and I'm seeing them fly above the buildings of the downtown area that I am currently standing in. All right, just sort of to give a little bit of context and an idea of sort of what it is that we're going to be trying to do. So first step is we need to get this piece of paper together. I took one piece of paper, tore it into 3 strips, and then simply taped them onto the back side in order to get the drawing surface ready, and then drew the horizon line on and created the vanishing points. All right, so my recommendation would be to pause the video now, give yourself a minute to get yourself caught up and set up, and then get started. All right, welcome back. Okay, so hopefully you've been able to get your papers set up just like what I have, and we're going to be getting started. So like 2-point perspective, we're going to be starting with a line, a vertical-ish line going up and down as opposed to a shape. The major difference between 2- and 3-point perspective is that in 2-point, all of our vertical lines, we made sure that they were oriented so that the lines were parallel to the edge of the piece of paper that we were working with, right? Or to the other lines. Remember, we were lining the ruler up and then sliding it over to where we wanted that line to go. With 3-point perspective, any line that would normally be vertical is going to go on a slight diagonal. And the point that all of these lines are going to meet at is our third vanishing point. So step 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil, I'm going to put it on the third vanishing point, put it off to a slight angle, and I'm going to create my first vertical line. All right, so this creates the corner of a building, for example, and just as we did last time, now I take the top and the bottom of that line, and I'm going to draw lines off to vanishing point 1, and I'm going to do the same thing here on the opposite side. I'm going to take some lines off into the direction of vanishing point 2. Right? Again, ideally you want to be drawing as light as possible and then going back and reinforcing the lines that you are actually going to need. Right? But again, because this is a video and I'm working with on a white surface, I'm actually going to be pressing a little bit harder from time to time just to make sure that the lines are easy to see. So now that I have the basic shape of the building set up, right, and I have the sides established. I need to figure out where they end. All right, so again, now I'm going back to the third vanishing point. Bring this down here. Again, anchor my pencil with the ruler, and I'm going to be holding this on a slight angle, and I'm going to bring that line down so that it comes off to the side here. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side, closer to vanishing point 2. Right, so now I have the top edge of my building and the bottom edge, right? Grabbing my eraser, right? Key for us is to always remember that we need to be erasing as many of these unnecessary lines as possible as we're going, because otherwise there's just so many different things that we're looking at. It's hard to kind of tell where everything is supposed to be. Okay? I'm going to just get rid of these excesses here and here. All right, cleaned up the workspace. So I want this to be a multi-story building, sort of with some indentation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to kind of create another sort of center line. I want it to kind of look as though there's like a little bit of a balcony up on the top here before we go into the other part of the building. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to make sure that those lines are all coming up like so. Okay, so we have the lines up at the top here, and now I want to create the top of the building, so I'm going to bring my lines down and across. Okay, again, putting the ruler on the vanishing point and looking at connecting on the opposite side as well, where the lines are intersecting down towards vanishing point 2. All right, and now again, taking my eraser, cleaning this up a little bit, so and like so. And just for kicks, let's add a third level to this, right? And I'm going to actually, I'm going to have it so that the building is kind of going in and then coming back out again. So I'm going to use the same line that I did for the first one, right? And I'm going to have this kind of come through. Right. And let's establish the top. I'm going to make these ones I'm going to make this one even a little bit wider, so it's kind of a wonky building. And this one over here, coming out a little bit past the bottom level as well. Okay, like so. And now I'm going to finish up with the top edge of the building here, and the top edge of the building over here, right? You can just repeat the previous step if you like, as well. But as I said, I'm kind of playing around with that idea of recesses and how we can use linear perspective to kind of create these multi-levels. Right? So at this point, what I need to do is I need to connect the front edge of this line, and this is going to come across, and it's going to come across here. So what's ending up happening is that the top part of my building is now going to actually be covering the top of that second kind of block that I've established. Right? I will also begin to see where this upper block is kind of receding or going around the back edge of block number 2. Right, so I'm going to clean up the top of this one because we don't need this here anymore. And again, remembering to press lightly so that it's easy to erase these lines. I'm kind of struggling because I've pressed harder for the video. All right, I'm going to clean this up here. There we go. Okay. So what's going to happen here too is that I'm going to be able to see underneath of the underside of this upper block. So I'm going to put in some lines here, very, very kind of carefully around, right, and thinking about how much of that underspace is visible. And again, I need to make sure that I'm erasing these lines that are not necessary. Okay, so I've erased way too much here, so I'm going to come back in, reestablish the lines that are actually quite important that I don't want to be losing. And as I'm going here, I'm actually going to be able to get this kind of cleaned up a little bit more. Actually, that line was incorrect. All right, so what happens a lot of the time too is as you're going, you're going to start to see where you need to be making some additional corrections. So I randomly put that intersection of this line for the underside way off to the side. What I should have done, right, is taken this, I'm going to reestablish that line there, and it's where this line intersects. It's going to come to the edge here, right? So that just kind of redefines that side, okay? And then draw the return back in. All right, so I will be posting these photos of these sketches up on our Google Classroom site as well. Just to make it a little easier. There we go. Okay, so now I've got this kind of interesting shape where it's kind of a larger block sitting on top of a smaller block, sitting on top of a huge block overall. Right, and through this process, you know what, I'm kind of having fun here. I'm going to continue these lines as if it's kind of just continuing right out of the picture space. I'm going to continue the same size as that previous middle block. So I've got it like an alternating pattern here. All right, so now that I have that overall building established, right, I can start thinking about windows and doors. All right, some of those interior details. I'm just going to do a door and maybe one window just as an example, and then you can continue to elaborate as you like. I'm going to put the ruler on vanishing point 3, and I'm going to just create my door opening. I'm not going to worry too much about scale at this point. I'm just kind of having fun and practicing with these particular scales. So this is going to be a really big door. All right, so I'm going to sketch in the top of the door as well. Okay, and what's important to remember is that now that my line is above the horizon, I'm going to be able to see some of that interior space as well. Okay, and I'm going to draw that in. And now I have a small line here for my doorway. And I'm going to create the recess for this as well, down at the bottom. All right, and then the door comes across like so. All right, so any line that would have been a vertical line in my 2-point perspective, I'm now using my third vanishing point in order to create the directionality of that line surface. I did that line over here to the wrong side, to the wrong vanishing point, right? And sometimes that'll happen and you'll notice that you need to make some of those adjustments. Typically what you're going to be looking for is that the line kind of is getting bigger or smaller when going in the wrong direction, right? And that's going to be a huge clue for you that you've kind of done something incorrectly, or you've been looking at something from the wrong direction. All right, so we've got one here. Let's put another window up in this block area up at the top. Okay, so I'm going to, again, take my ruler. I'm going to draw the sides of my window first. 1 and 2, right? And there is a lot of distortion here, which is perfectly fine. And I'm going to put this one in over, start with the top now. Okay, and then start with the bottom, second. Okay, so now we have these two, the shape of the window established. Okay, what's really important to remember, now that this is above the horizon line, we're not going to be able to see the top of the bottom ledge. We will only be able to see the underside of the top. And likewise, we're not going to be able to see the interior side of this particular side of the window frame, but we will be able to see the right-hand side. So I'm going to start by drawing in kind of the underside of the top of the window, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to draw the side of the window, and where those two lines intersect here, I'm going to bring back out to the corner in order to create that edge. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to go through the think aloud for the other window that I'm going to create. I'm just going to quickly do this drawing. You'll see that I'm going to speed up the video again, just so that you can kind of see it coming together. I'll do a couple more details just for some repetition and help some of these ideas kind of sink in a little bit. You might see some corrections being made or adjustments as well as I'm kind of tidying up this particular image. All right, so if you have any questions, again, please make sure that you're reaching out to me and pause the video when you need to in order to kind of see what's going on. All right, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. All right, so at this point, I've kind of sketched in a few more details. I got a couple more windows. I got my door here as well. And overall, right, something like this would be able to demonstrate that you're able to competently utilize three-point perspective, right? To continue to sort of further enhance your learning, start thinking about lighting and adding the value as we have in some of those other drawings. Remember that the key here for doing this type of work is to be thinking about where is the light going to be coming from, what side of the building is going to be lit the most, have the strongest highlights, and where will the shadows likely be falling.